Hey everybody, thought I'd do a video here tonight. I got a good question from a subscriber and I appreciate the questions and it helps me get ideas for videos. But I was asked if I had ever read the Epic of Gilgamesh and what I thought about it, and that's where we got our Noah flood story from the ancient Babylonian tale of the hero Gilgamesh, and that is a definite possibility. I think a lot of our biblical stories originated from original stories from Egypt and Sumer. But I found a couple good articles here, and I'm going to read, and I'll leave the link below. But it says this, and this is written by George Latour, and he kind of gets what I'm going after here. He says this: the Egyptian pyramid texts from around 2300 BC link Osiris, king of the netherworld and judge of the dead, to the constellation Orion. Behold, he has come as Orion. Behold, Osiris has come as Orion. O king, the sky conceives you with Orion. The dawn light bears you with Orion. Utterance 442. In the tomb of Thutmosis III from 1425, an angled white path, the Milky Way, intersects the horizontal course of the sun, the ecliptic, in the 4th hour of the Umduat, and the mummiform Osiris guards the hinged gate at the intersection. By another gate along the Milky Way sits the scorpion symbol of the goddess Selket, giving us 2 gates in the heavens. A similar arrangement is encoded in the standard version of the Babylonian story of Gilgamesh from around 1100 BC, where the hero travels to the gates guarded by the scorpion man Scorpius after his friend Enkidu dies. Earlier, the two had defeated the bull of heaven, which is Taurus, offered its heart to Shamash, the sun, and incurred the wrath of Ishtar, Venus, all astronomically indicated events. Orion faces Taurus along the Milky Way at one of the heavenly intersections where, according to Macrobius in 400 AD, stands the gates of the afterlife. Like the Egyptian Osiris, the Babylonian Gilgamesh would be seen as king of the judge of the dead, and already on the Sumerian plaque from the king's lyre in the royal tombs of we can recognize this celestial pattern. At the bottom, the scorpion man stands for the constellation Scorpius, while at the top, a heroic figure, Gilgamesh as Orion, wrestles the bulls, that's Taurus, at the opposite crossroads in the firmament. Eventually, Greek myth will have the great hunter Orion fleeing the heavens when the constellation Scorpius rises at the opposite location in the sky. Did these similar celestial topologies evolve independently, or could a diffusion of astronomical ideas be traced across the ancient world? And here is from the tomb of Thutmosis, and here, this section here is from the royal tomb of and it has the hero Gilgamesh up here. And interesting, from ancient Sumer, they have him depicted as that, because it says this: in the king's lyre plaque from the royal tombs, at the top is Gilgamesh wrestling the bulls, which represent Taurus, and it says Gilgamesh as Orion wears only a belt, the belt of Orion. His exposed genitals represent the Orion Nebula that hangs below the belt and is euphemistically called the sword or dagger of Orion. The parallel in Egyptian myth is the phallus of Osiris that Isis searches for when she tries to rejoin the dismembered king. The constellation Orion, with the sword of Orion hanging from the 3 stars of the belt of Orion, is depicted here on the far right. So I thought that was very interesting that Gilgamesh is represented just by wearing a belt, which astronomically, of course, stands for Orion, and it has, according to this guy, his genitals, the place of creation, being represented as the same place as the Orion Nebula is. And over here on worldmysteries.com, it says this: so in what way, if any, does this all relate to the Epic of Gilgamesh? And this, he also ties it in here. He says the first clue that the Sumerian tale be more than a simple tale of princes and kings, and maybe instead a priestly account of a cosmic clash, is that Gilgamesh's companion Enkidu is described as being like a meteor. It says this from the Epic. It says, this star heaven which descended like a meteor from the sky, which you tried to lift but found too heavy, This is the strong comrade, the one who brings help to his friend in need. And the texts go on to describe Enkidu in great detail. The illusion is quite obvious. Enkidu is a stellar object. Gilgamesh himself, in turn, is described as arming himself for the coming quest and battle in the following fashion. Gilgamesh took the axe, he slung the quiver from his shoulder, and the bow of Anshan, and buckled the sword to his belt, and so they were armed and ready for the journey. And here, of course, is Taurus and Orion, and the belt being depicted, and the sword hanging down here, and this is where the Orion Nebula is, of course. And it says, in stellar terms, the illusion is again quite plain. The axe in the right hand, the bow in the left hand, the sword hanging from his prominent belt. It is likely that Gilgamesh was not a king, but instead the Sumerian term for the constellation of Orion. Take a look at the diagram of Orion. Quite remarkably, this constellation has all the attributes ascribed to Gilgamesh. If so, however, Gilgamesh was likely to have been written as an epic of the heavens, an impending battle with the constellations, and the greatest of all constellations, Orion, was arming himself to do battle with the cosmos. But Gilgamesh, Orion, does not know the way, so it is only fitting that he needs Enkidu, which could be a meteor or Sirius, to lead him. And it says from the epic, let Enkidu lead the way, he knows the road to the forest, and the forest being the forest of stars, the mountains of cedar, and the dwelling place of the gods. And the dwelling place of the gods being linked to Orion, that makes sense. The ancient tale describes exactly the purpose of Gilgamesh Orion's quest. It is to slay the constellation of Taurus the bull. In stellar terms, it is the constellation of Orion who is armed with an axe, the bow, and has a sword hanging from his prominent belt. It is Orion who has drawn his bow and is aimed at it the adjacent constellation of Taurus. The processional change of the constellations from Taurus to Aries that is also alluded to in both Egyptian and biblical tales is about to unfold once more. But here in Sumer, it is the hero Gilgamesh in the guise of Orion is reported as killing the bull of heaven, the constellation Taurus. But first, Gilgamesh has to seek out the watcher of the forest, the stars, a fearsome beast called the Humbaba. And it goes on to say this. At the third blow, Humbaba fell. Now the mountains were moved, and all the hills, for the guardian of the forest was killed. The seven splendors of Humbaba were extinguished. And for a 4,000-year-old story, the prose is still clear as it is today when it was written, if you know the subject matter. There is only one guardian of the constellation of Taurus, and that is the Pleiades, the constellation known as the Seven Sisters, a small group of 7 stars that are visible to the naked eye and reside on the back of Taurus. From this elevated position, Humbaba, the Pleiades, could watch over the constellation of Taurus and protect it. Thus, if Taurus were to be attacked, the Humbaba had to be dealt with first. With the Humbaba extinguished, Taurus' back was exposed and vulnerable. Here was the weak spot for the hero Gilgamesh Orion to attack. So there you go. I just thought that explained to you very well how these correlations between Gilgamesh and Orion made sense. So, and I thought it was very interesting on this website where the Sumerians seem to have the Orion Nebula represented by Gilgamesh's genitals. I was going to say nuts, but I didn't want to go there. But I just thought this was very interesting. Hope you did too. Have a nice night.